Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and listening, and we have Larry on board on the top of his mountain. Hi, Larry. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, Stuart, got my fireplace going. It's cold, but it's cold all over the nation, and they say it's going to get worse.
Yeah, we can get into that because this could wipe out a lot of crops. That means big price increases, and it also can develop into famine real quick. Why don't we start with North Korea? Because, as I understand it, he's threatening, made a lot more threats, and now they claim he's going to launch another missile. And you just informed me just before showtime that this may be a nuclear air test where he explodes a nuke in the atmosphere. What's going on over there?
Well, I don't know if anybody knows exactly what he's doing, but it appears, and recently, I'll mention this too, recently reports came out that Kim Jong-un had executed his North Korean nuclear chief over delays on the nation's sixth nuclear test explosion. So the nuclear chief didn't get the job done, and Kim apparently executed him. And as well, the second in command in North Korea has also been missing for weeks. So lots going on now. Intelligence coming out of there have been reporting that Kim has a new missile on the launch pad, and they were expecting maybe he's going to try to launch a satellite. But as of today, Wednesday, they're reporting they're very concerned that this may be actually a atmospheric nuclear test, and they're very concerned about that.
Well, I know they said something about he was also developing a nuclear head, or not nuclear, but an anthrax to put on top of his missiles.
Well, there was two generals spoke today. One was Jerry Boykin. You're aware who he is. He
Yep.
was saying that the point has been reached in the Korean Peninsula that Trump needs to immediately evacuate American citizens away from that peninsula. And General McGinnis came out on Lou Dobbs just a little bit earlier and said that the threat is so high now on the peninsula that it appears that war is just any time with North Korea. And McGinnis said that not only nukes may be involved, but he said that they have biologicals and chemical weapons already deployed. So this is a very, and as a matter of fact, and I'll add this and get your opinion, McGinnis said that he believed that just as soon as any hostilities start anywhere, that the barrage on Seoul will begin from the north.
Well, that would be the fastest way for Kim to get even, because I think he would know he's going down, and so he would attempt to take anybody with him as much as he could, kind of like a Samson-Opson that Israel has always maintained. Well, if we're going to go down, we're taking you with us, which evidently is a threat that does bring enemies pause. I'm just wondering, though, about all of this, because all we ever get out of Trump is, well, I'm going to take care of that. And yet this thing keeps escalating and escalating and escalating, and nothing actually militarily has been done. What do you think the odds are that if he was to launch another satellite, that it could be an EMP device, if he doesn't have some up there already?
Yeah, it's certainly possible. As a matter of fact, some of the generals have said for months that the two satellites that North Korea launched, were possibly EMP devices, low-yield nukes that go over us every day, two of them. And if there's a third one he's putting up there, it's certainly not going to have mass in it.
Mm-hmm. So analyzing this, if they go in with conventional warfare, millions are going to die. Absolutely millions of people would die if they just used conventional war. The only way I could see that Trump could possibly take out North Korea with minimal damage would be if he uses satellite, EMP, not an EMP device, but a particle weapon, laser, or microwave weapon, which appears that's what they're using in the California fires. And the reason I say that is because of the temperatures that they're finding in these California fires are so hot, way hotter than normal fires, that something has to be being used to make all this happen. And eyewitnesses have said they see a beam of light come down, and then almost instantly they'll have a dozen houses on fire. Now, that's got to be satellite, Illuminati, UN, whatever you want to call it, doing these things. And why not use it on North Korea? I mean, they could neutralize North Korea in a matter of seconds by doing that.
I know a lot of people poo-poo the idea that, possibly we start our own fires, but ironically, if you'll remember, years ago, they actually legalized testing weapons on American citizens. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if you've heard it yet. You were aware of the so-called, biological military drill that was going to happen in northern Oklahoma. They backed down from that. There was such an uproar in Oklahoma, especially from a lot of the Indian tribes and citizenry, that they backed down now doing that drill.
Wow. Any more on the FEMA front on possible EMP? Because that's really what all that FEMA, that's what we heard up here anyway, was really about electrical grid failure and emergency communications. Has anything more been heard that you know of at all on that front? Because that would tie it to North Korea and an EMP device. Or the CIA does it to Americans and blames it on North Korea, so we get into a war. What do you think?
Well, that's very possible, and at the same time, Augusto Perez is really concerned about a possible deep state false flag being used to pull themselves out of the hole that they've dug for themselves. So I haven't heard any more ever since, we talked about it on this show, and we got verification across the country of the ham radio situation. Yes. It's gone quiet. It's gone extremely quiet.
Tell me a little bit more about Augusto's, what the Lord told him. Is there any more to that? I know he's got something up, but do you remember any of what he had to say?
Well, it was about an hour-long program, an emergency program on Christmas Day, and people can go to blogtalkradio.com/the appearance and go back in and listen to that Christmas Day show. He was very concerned. He said the Lord had told him to warn the American people, those that would listen, and that trouble was coming. I mean, that the dominoes were going to begin to fall. And, he's very concerned about the rest through New Year's and then on in, January especially, with troubles. And, it seems like the crescendo is building towards that, because even the last day or two, you've seen a resurgence of the left and the deep state. And when I say the left, I'm also including the Republicans, Democrat and Republican, wanting to remove Trump from office. They want him out now. And this is building towards what Augusto believes is a civil war in this country.
Yeah, I think you're right. If they impeach Trump, there's enough of the people who supported him, I mean, this is. I know they talk about impeachment all the time, but let's look at the actual facts. Obama had over at least and maybe over 35 impeachment offenses while he was shredding the Constitution and totally disobeying it. But nothing was done about it. Now, Trump actually follows the law, has obeyed the Constitution, and yet the communist traitors in Washington, the deep staters, are screaming, impeach him. Does this not kind of remind you of, let me see if I can find it, Isaiah 5:19 through 21. Woe unto them that call evil good, and good evil, that put darkness for light, light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet, and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. One of the headlines on Drudge, the reason I read that, Gallup poll says Obama and Hillary retained most admired titles. Now, how is that possible when you had a guy that was absolutely shredding every right in America, absolutely hated Christians, favored Islam and the Muslim faith, in fact, packed the White House with the Muslim Brotherhood people, and yet, according to this Gallup poll, Obama and Hillary, who is the most crooked, evil woman on the face of the planet, retained the most admired titles. Is this the fulfillment of Isaiah 5:19 and 21 through 21?
Well, it could be. You know, I don't know of another woman in America that fits the title of Jezebel, the biblical Jezebel, as well as Hillary Clinton does. And at the same time, Barack Obama is certainly a what I would term an antichrist, anti-American president. You know, as a matter of fact, he's the least known president because people can't even associate the name Barry Soetoro with him. But what's interesting, there's another Breitbart article, and I'd like your opinion on this. And I watched some reports today. And they've got Barry and Harry. It's interesting they're using Barry for his first name, Barack Hussein Obama. Barry and Harry, the UK prince, interviews former U.S. president for the BBC. Obama takes a veiled swipe at President Trump and against U.S. deplorables. And all day today, Wednesday, Fox News has had coverage in OANN talking about how President Obama now has come out on the battlefield against Trump. So what do you think?
Yeah, I see the article. Obama warns against the irresponsible social media use. He's talking about the Internet, and he wants to shut it down, basically. He wants total control over the Internet, absolute total control. And yet I don't think the American people understand what he's doing or what he wants when he comes back. But here's a comment he makes. All of us in leadership have to find ways in which we can recreate a common space on the Internet. He's not in leadership anymore. He's not the President of the United States. And yet this comment appears to think that he is still actually the President. What do you think of that comment?
Yeah, what's so interesting, Stuart, maybe he knows something we don't know, or maybe the New World Order crowd has told him something that we haven't heard yet. But on the other hand, it's interesting that he has come out of the woodwork following President Donald Trump all across the globe, still meeting with, royalty in different locations and also with world leaders and downplaying all of Trump's foreign policy. You could call that sedition. I guess you could even call that treason against the sitting president of the United States and his office.
Well, I think it's illegal for a private citizen to be doing all that. I'm not sure what the law is, but if I went over, for example, privately and talked to Putin, I'd be arrested for it. And yet he seems to be going everywhere, and nobody does anything. And that's the one area where I'm curious about Trump. All these guys are still out. They're walking around. They have not been in prison. Nobody seems to be being held accountable except for a few. I have heard that there are massive amounts of sealed indictments that are going out all over the world. And some of it is verified, I guess, but I don't know how you actually would vet something that's very quiet going on in the background. I've heard that Soros and Clinton Foundation, all their funds have been seized or frozen. And I've heard that there are thousands of indictments going out there. And I did notice when Hillary came out, she was still wearing her boots to hide the ankle tracker. And John McCain suddenly vanished as well, and there were a lot of reports that he was likewise served. But if this is true that's going on in the background, then deep state has to have a false flag, which goes back to Augusto and what the Lord told him. They cannot wait around much longer. They have to have something huge occur to distract everybody. And, of course, it would all be blamed on Trump anyway. And who elected Trump? Christians. So we're going to blame the Christians for it as well. I mean, this thing could turn on a dime, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's a very critical time. And one of the things, too, Augusto was very interested in, and, of course, and right now, I wanted to also mention that over the last few days there's been a number of international posts on the Internet about George Soros having a massive heart attack in Hungary and possibly being at death's door. And Holideo apparently was able to vet that story out of Hungary and said it is not true, that it is not a real story. It's one of those fake news things. It's one of those, I guess you could say, embedded reports that, but Holideo did vet it and said the George Soros story is not accurate. So I wanted to lay that to rest. And at the same time, Augusto had a really good question. He said, why is it when suddenly the Atlanta airport goes dark, everything shuts down, and nothing moves for hours? They don't even have lights. All the backups failed. Everything failed, and the airport is in darkness. Why is the only aircraft to leave that airport during that time an Israeli flight? And, of course, nobody has answers for that. And, I could surmise, but I'm not going to. I made the comment on Augusto's show that, if America is really against the ropes, so to speak, and there's either North Korea, Iran, or both are about to make a move, and possibly, we know before that things have been moved in darkness and at certain times, and it could be for the protection of Israel or America or both. We don't know. We don't have the answers to that. But at the same time, Dallas DFW not DFW, but Dallas Airport Love Field also supposedly had a fire and went into darkness. So we've got some really strange stuff going on.
Well, you can create massive chaos by shutting down communications. I got involved in one of those when I was flying for the General Electric Company. We were coming in, and all of a sudden the communications center the airport control tower, ground, all of the radio frequencies were useless. Now you got to understand that at JFK, hundreds of airplanes come in every hour. They come in from international, they come in from all the domestics, and when you have total failure, then the pilots, the captains on board, have to make a decision as to what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. You have no communications, whatever, with anyone, and you got these hundreds of airplanes. Now, in my particular case, when I was coming in and that happened, we had essentially visual flight rules, weather. In other words, it's clear and above 3 miles. We elected to go to Schenectady on our own. I don't know what happened to the other airliners. I could hear them talking to each other as to what they were going to do and how they were going to go, what, turn around, go back, or what. But if you did that across the nation, you would have just total chaos and bedlam. And usually you're not required to have tons of fuel on board, which makes that even worse. You're supposed to have 45 minutes in reserve. Airlines probably have more than that, but they don't have a lot of fuel on board. Well, if your main airport shuts down, and if all the others around it shut down as well, and I'm wondering if they're not fooling around with something here to bring that possibility around. What a false flag that would be.
Oh, yeah.
If you could do that nationwide. What do you think?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And I did want to give you one more link in the chain here of events that's occurring that most people don't know about. Yahoo News has posted a report today along with some satellite images that clearly show now, it says that Chinese ships spotted illegally selling oil to North Korea, delivering oil, monitored now by U.S. spy satellites. So we now have the satellite images. The jig is up. North Korea is being supplied with oil and fuel by China. It has never stopped.
Well, China's not our friend. Never was. Of course, if people would read the Bible, they'd know that they're the kings of the East, and they're not our friends. In fact, there was a naval admiral 2, 3, 4 years ago who warned, look out for China. They're a big threat. Likewise, Russia is not our friend. In fact, Russia is even a bigger threat militarily. So here we are again, kind of surrounded by enemies. And when I was up in Canada this was some years ago now, but they told me there were Russian troops up in what they call Queensland, which is kind of land set aside. You know, it's just mile after mile after mile of woods. But evidently in those woods somewhere are these encampments. And they were in there getting ready at that point in time to invade from the north. You remember Red Elk, what he had to say about the invasions.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, I really do.
Yeah,
and I was
ahead.
going to tell you that over the last day or two, there's been Russian warships in the channel off of the UK, and there are some reports, and there are rumors at this time, but there's some reports coming out of the UK that believe that some Spetsnaz have been landed around the UK, and they're very concerned that trouble may start very soon.
Well, I think we have Spetsnaz. In fact, I'm positive we have Spetsnaz in America. And the reason I'm positive is, and this was years ago, I saw a group of them at a restaurant, clearly Russian military. And I don't think the American people realize that they've been invited in. We have German military here. We have other military. It's all part of the UN takeover of the United States, Agenda 21/30/50. It's a communist takeover. And they're going to win, according to the Bible, because the American people sit on their butts and they won't do anything about it. They probably don't even know because, you know, Hannity once said, and I think he had like 3 million.7 listeners. And what's 3.7 million people listening to Hannity compared to the population of the United States? In fact, if a lot of these guys, I think it was like Waters World, would go out and interview people, and a lot of them didn't even know where Washington, D.C. was. I mean, they've been dumbed down to the point where they don't even know anything. And, of course, that's what you do when you're going to take over a nation. You infiltrate, and they have infiltrated the church. They've infiltrated police departments and sheriff departments. They've infiltrated just about everything that really means anything. And I just think we're in a lot of trouble, and I think you're right. That's why I said 2018, is it a year of hope and Trump is going to continue, or is it going to be a year of fear and trouble? If they take Trump out, we're in for it almost immediately. What do you think? It sounds like they're getting ready to make their move. The deep state, anyway.
Well, that's actually what Augusto Perez is very concerned about, and he was basically given that word on Christmas Day, warning basically the people of faith especially to prepare for difficult times. I mean, don't wait, prepare now. And, even though that word's gone out for years, he's really saying it in a more critical way now than ever before. And he's very concerned that if something does occur, and he's expecting in the next weeks or months, we're real trouble. And I'd shared with you that I felt like if we didn't have a problem with Iran or North Korea immediately, in the next few weeks, I was looking at a time frame in March or April for a problematic scenario.
Yeah, there's something going wrong with the American people. I've known it for a long time, but, and part of it, I guess, is the educational system. But there's something else wrong. I got a letter from somebody, and I just want to read part of it. And I think he's being very accurate. People are so rude and cheap out there anymore. They just want something for nothing anymore. Isn't that about the way it is now? And if you have that attitude, the nation's in a lot of trouble. And talk about rudeness. I mean, this is what I think Timothy laid into what it was going to be like in the last days. And I think we're watching all of this coming to pass, and we're getting ready for either the return of the Lord or the collapse of the United States. I think it's right on the verge. We're in that pivot, 17 to 18. What do you think? We got about a minute left.
Yeah, and there's another anomaly that's really kind of disturbing the left and deep state. Israel now has came out and named a train station in Jerusalem honoring President Donald Trump. And, of course, that's another pebble in the water that's causing waves.
Well, look at the way they treated Trump in Saudi Arabia. Look at the way they treated him when he went to China. There's something about Donald Trump, and we don't know what it is yet. But I got a feeling we're going to find it out pretty soon. You got to admire the guy in a lot of ways. I mean, he has 81 major accomplishments that deep state hates, of course, and would like to undo overnight. If Obama comes back into power or Hillary does, look out, folks. There will be trouble like you've never, ever heard of or even could believe, I think. Anyway, Larry, thanks for coming on, and we'll try and put something together here for Friday where we can elaborate on a lot of this stuff, because things are really moving, even though it seems very quiet, maybe on media, but it isn't. Anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in and listening, and thank you again, Larry, for coming on, and we'll see everybody again Friday, the Lord willing. Night, everyone.